Hey students, welcome to another Mr. Net screencast. Today's aim is Constitutional Compromises number 3, the Bill of Rights. Before we begin, please have your Unit 2 vocab sheet and handout 2.4 open. You're going to be taking notes in both of those as you watch this video. So pause the video and take a minute to open both of them before you continue. And here are your objectives. Pause the video again, look these objectives over, and get ready to copy some vocab and take some notes. Again, make sure that you have your vocab sheet and handout 2.4 open before you continue. All right, let's review this term, federalism. It's a system of government in which the federal government and the state government share power. At the Constitutional Convention, the delegates disagreed about how to share that power and specifically how much power the federal government should have. Some delegates argued that the failure of the Articles of Confederation proved that a strong federal government was needed. But others recalled their conflicts with the British king and remained suspicious of a powerful federal government that could abuse their rights. This issue split the delegates into two opposing groups. The first group was called the Federalists. The Federalists supported a strong federal government. They liked the new Constitution because it created a much stronger federal government than the Articles of Confederation had. As a result, they were eager to have it ratified. The leaders of the Federalists were three men named Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. I told you in the last video that in order for the Constitution to be ratified or approved, 9 out of the 13 states would have to vote for it. In order to gain support for ratification, the three Federalist leaders, Hamilton, Madison, and Jay, published a series of 85 essays called the Federalist Papers. Move this out of your way. In the Federalist Papers, Hamilton, Madison, and Jay encouraged ratification of the Constitution. They argued that a strong federal government was needed to create an orderly country, and they said that Americans should not worry about the Constitution giving the federal government too much power, because separation of powers and checks and balances were enough to prevent tyranny. So the Federalist Papers defended the Constitution and tried to build support for its ratification. The opposing side at the convention, which disagreed with the Federalists, was the Anti-Federalists. Later, the Anti-Federalists would form their own political party, called the Democratic Republicans. We'll talk about that later. Unlike the Federalists, the Anti-Federalists preferred a weak federal government and strong state governments, much like the Articles of Confederation had created. The Anti-Federalists were scared that the Constitution was giving too much power to the federal government and that it would be able to abuse people's human rights. The Anti-Federalists demanded that the Constitution include more explicit protections of citizens' rights. Skip number 24 for a moment and look at term 25, amendment. An amendment is a change or addition to the Constitution. Amendments contain ideas or rules that are not found in the original text of the Constitution. They're added on later. It's extremely difficult to add an amendment to the Constitution, but it can be done, and it has happened a few times in history. There are currently 27 amendments, with the most recent amendment being added in 1992. The Bill of Rights is what we call the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, and all 10 of these guarantee basic human rights. This is a list of freedom that all citizens have, as well as of things that the federal government is not allowed to do to citizens. These 10 amendments were added all at once toward the end of the Constitutional Convention. Thomas Jefferson and the Anti-Federalists said that they would not vote to ratify the Constitution unless this list of protections was added. Remember, they were concerned about the federal government having too much power, so they wanted, in writing, a guarantee that the federal government would respect people's basic rights. And this guarantee was the Bill of Rights. We will be looking at the 10 amendments that make up the Bill of Rights in class. When Federalists agreed to add the Bill of Rights to the Constitution, the Anti-Federalists agreed to ratify it, and on June 21st, 1788, the ninth state, New Hampshire, voted for ratification. The Constitution was officially ratified, and from that point on, formed the government of the United States. Okay, you're done filling in vocab words for today. We are going to shift from our vocab sheet to the handout. Before you continue the video, pause and make sure that you have it open. You may want to keep your vocab sheet open so that you can refer to some of the terms you just learned. Take a look at the last row on your chart, the Bill of Rights. The issue here is the power of the federal government. The first group is the Federalists. On the issue of power of the federal government, Federalists wanted a strong federal government, one with a lot of power. They liked the Constitution and thought that the system of checks and balances was enough to prevent the government, the federal government, from abusing its power. The second group is the Anti-Federalists. The Anti-Federalists wanted a weak federal government and strong state governments. They thought that the Constitution did not adequately protect people's human rights, and they wanted more protections against government abuse. The compromise was adding the Bill of Rights to the Constitution. The Federalists gained the support of the Anti-Federalists that they needed for ratification, and the Anti-Federalists felt assured that the government would not be able to abuse its power and take away citizens' rights. All right, that's all for today's lesson. Please pause the video and review these objectives. Take notes on loose leaf so that you have a reference for the do now. And if you don't know the answer to any, just rewind the video and review. See you in class.